Hello and welcome. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Thanks for joining us. Wanted to walk us folks through a new release, and actually it's new even as of last week. So we're going to talk about it today. We're going to give you a brief overview, take a little quick video, and show you some nice, cool things. And then we'll also do some Q&A here at the end. And then for a full in-depth demonstration, probably going to run another session here and really get into the details and the weeds. We've got some cool new things that are happening, and I definitely want to make sure that you see those as well. So thanks again for joining us. We are PPM Works. We're a gold certified Microsoft partner, and we do everything Microsoft 365. That goes from Microsoft Project to Teams into creating apps for organizations and things to the like. Now, with this, we have gone forward and really charted some new areas, which is kind of cool, especially in and around the app development. So today I know we're going to be focused in on this new thing called project operations, sits in over in Office 365 or Dynamics 365 over there. And really it's going to be the end-to-end project from an opportunity all the way through the costing and invoicing into your financials. So we're going to show you some of that breadth today. But I want to make sure that you are aware of some of these upcoming webcasts that we do have. There's going to be Microsoft 365 for an industry. We're doing finance is going to be coming up. We're also doing some Power BI. So everything around analytics, how to see your information, really data-driven decisions here, and be able to get to the information you need. Most of the organizations that are joining this webcast and others are more from a project-centric based. And that's going to go nicely, especially for what we're talking about today. Power Automate and how we actually get in there. It's part of the Power Platform. Now we'll talk about the whole breadth of M365 a little bit today, but to get into the discrete area of really automating things and doing what used to be called flow, that's going to be in the mid-December timeframe. Now, if you are joining from the US, we're on the eve of our Thanksgiving holiday. We have a lot to give thanks for, especially during this pandemic. So hopefully you and your family are safe and your loved ones are staying safe as well. Now, we want to keep this interactive. So there is a Q&A panel that you folks can click on. You can submit your questions and we'll be happy to go ahead and answer those as we go through this. But I wanted to start this off by just getting some expectations out there. And if you do have any questions, go ahead and submit those and we'll get those answered. If there's something specific that you'd like to see today or the reason why you joined this call, definitely shoot it over in the Q&A and I'll make sure that we can go ahead and address that. So I want to go ahead and get started here with a little bit about the background. If you're like me, yes, we want to be able to talk about this and do it, but I also want to bring up just a quick little video here. So I want to bring this up for us so we can see this. If you haven't had the opportunity to see it, it sort of gives you that all-encompassing view here of what project automation is going to be in and around the new toolset project operations. And it looks like my screen is not making big, so I will just play it right here for us.
Microsoft Dynamics 365 Project Operations connects teams across your organization by unifying all aspects of project-based services within one secure, flexible solution. Your entire team can access the information and real-time analytics they need to deliver projects on time and on budget every time. Drive project success and unlock your full potential today.
All right, and welcome back here. So that just gives you a little glimpse of what the tool can do. And it's really, that line right there, on budget and on time, and really every time is what we're trying to do as an organization. So when you take a look at what your project lifecycle is, you could pick this up at any point. The end-to-end tool and the functionality that's there for you is really all-encompassing. And you may have heard this, time and time again, but let's dive into each one of these areas really quick here. It truly is end-to-end, from an opportunity all the way through to your project accounting. At different point, you could have invoices that be sent out. It's all built on Dynamics, what we're calling project operations. So this Dynamic 365 tool that's out there, that's the platform. And then if you would, one of the core key modules that this is leveraging is going to lean on both the sales platform as well as the finance and ops, so the F&O or the finance area. So if those ring a bell and you're currently using Dynamics for any of those, for project PSA, used to be project service automation, or you were using Dynamics 365, and you want to use project online, those are the three pieces that this sort of blends together. So if we look at for the first channel from the sales perspective, this is where you get your folks heavily involved from the sale. So what are they using? If they're using Microsoft CRM, this dovetails nicely. It's integrated out of the box. So we'll actually talk about how that sales process works and getting into the actual planning mechanism. And that's really where your different managers are going to come in, whether it happens to be an account manager. Once it's sort of real and we've quantified it and qualified this, it's going to go into that planning cycle. Now, you might do a waterfall, you might do different approaches, and that's fine too. You can use Microsoft Project in different avenues to do those methodologies. But what we're going to do is bring that planning in. At some point, who's doing what when? Focusing on that resource utilization. The key to our organization are those doers, the resources. Do they have the time and the capacity to get what we're asking them to get done for, in this case, our client? And this, again, could be a billable activity, billable projects, or it could be internal. It doesn't have to be a billable tool here. You can use both. Team collaboration and getting people engaged. They are the heart of our organization. Without them, we don't get anything done as a more of a management view and portfolio perspective. So we want to make sure we make this easy for them and bring it into a team's area. So that's where the collaboration is going to happen. Now, we mentioned getting dollars back in and maybe billing our clients and invoicing and following suit. So if this was a billable project that you have here and you're going out and billing one or multiple vendors out there, then what we'll do, those clients, billing those clients, that's when different trigger points can happen throughout your life cycle. So when we take a look and we start to see the level of the project and where we are, you can actually have folks enter in time. They're capturing time. That's going to be cost, and that's what we're going to bill in a service industry like ours. That's where we would actually bill you. So we do this. We use Project Online to manage our projects, to invoice and bill you for the time that we're spending. All the way back to project accounting. Now you get the people that tick and tie and do that invoicing, okay, and reach out, accounts payable. That whole process is now enveloped into this one package. And it wouldn't be anything if we couldn't make data-driven decisions out of it. Where are we within the project? Are we, to the beginning of this webcast, are we on time? Are we on budget? Okay, so that's really what we're going to go back and see, the reporting capability and what sits there. Now, we mentioned 3 items at the top of the hour, and these are they. We talked about the influence or the rich history of where this tool is coming from, and it's coming from that PSA environment. So if you were using Dynamics or PSA in this area, the project service automation capability, this is going to dovetail and feels very similar to that. It's going to have a more CRM or Dynamics feel. However, the more recent here with project operations, it's taking that lightweight project management system, the modern project, and embedding it in. So then we have the scheduling capability of the tool there too. Now, everything we talked about, getting project accounting involved, doing invoicing, things like that, that's where it ties into Dynamics Finance. So when you have your details and you're driving all your financial key capabilities for all costing and accounts management down to codes and really doing that level of finance and tracking, that's where it's going to pull in there. Now, Microsoft has a key competitive edge against a lot of others. If you're joining this, you might already be on the Microsoft platform, and that is a pretty darn big competitive edge. However, Microsoft plays nicely across the board, whether it's a Microsoft tool or a competitor tool. You still can harness and do the collaboration with Microsoft Teams. You still could pull in things from a different system, whether it's SAP or Oracle, and bring the details in for actuals that you have in there. But with this competitive edge, if you do have some of these other things with Microsoft, you are now taking both your front and your back end office and getting that end-to-end capability following the life cycle of a project. What happens if you have milestone payments? How does that work today? Are there a lot of email communications that go through, or can it automatically be sent at different intervals of the project, depending on both what resources have worked as well as the cost structure that's there? We'll talk about some of those geographically and different currencies as well. That's all going to dovetail into here with the financial module that we have. Now, with Microsoft Project, you saw that logo down the bottom. This is where our tried and true project and portfolio managers and even program managers live, right? The ability to create detailed tasks, whether it's bottoms up or top-down planning from a resource perspective. Maybe we want to budget this out and we have an annual planning cycle that we have to have line items for not only labor costs, but what about those other fun things? We're talking about CapEx, right? Capital versus expense. When do we amortize things? All of these detailed finance concepts that we have that we usually, to this point, have been dealing with disparate systems, now we can bring into one system. And lastly, that real-time area is getting those insights using, whether it's Power BI, a different reporting tool that you folks have, but out of the box, you're going to have some really rich reports. Even within project operations, you have some high-level reports there. Now, from an industry perspective, you start talking about the details. And this is really when you go across your different industries, okay? And you're talking about these different verticals, whether it is like us, we're a professional services and consulting. That's how we make our money. We use this system daily to make sure that our intake is coming in, right? And we have our eyes on the new folks, but also are our resources keeping up with what they're assigned to? And when they perform their work, are our back end? Are we invoicing when we need to? Are the terms set there? Are we using different currencies? All of that good stuff. That entire strategy that we've set up, pushing this out in a more automated fashion. Now you can see just a few others that we're targeting here with project operations. And we do have some of those webcasts that you saw that we were talking about, whether it was going from the manufacturing area, new product development, a very heavy industry, even during the pandemic today, is we have a lot of front end workers and we also have a lot of work from home folks that are out there, making sure that they can go across this and plug in where they see fit. Dynamics is that horizontal platform. It is that workload, if you will, that goes across all these industries and then brings in what used to be these disparate tools that we're using to perform, to get our work done, to become more efficient when we're talking about project and delivering those costs, and ultimately delivering a successful product or service for our clients. So you can really see some of these that go through here. We talked about our teams being the envelope and getting into some of these. Now these slides were provided, and thank you, to Gherkin and his team. Gherkin is the general manager there at Microsoft for the Dynamics and Project Operations team. And also they did something at Ignite where they shared some of these slides, and Rupa did a nice early stage demonstration on some of this, and she's a key principal PM. And they are really one of the faces of project operations out to the world. And they showed this last slide here, and they really talked about the different tenets and the richness of what's involved with project operations. And I'm going to pause here and have you take a look at some of this, because although we've talked about it at high level, when we talk about the sales cycle piece of it, I can show some of the quoting today here and how you can actually work that. you need to figure out where in your cycle would project operations fit in. We know it can do all this, but does it make sense to roll this out across the organization starting day one, or do you pick it up at different pieces? If you're already doing an okay job, or maybe a smack damn good job on the project planning and resourcing using Microsoft Project, well, now we can pull that back in and say, oh, wouldn't it be great if we can get the front piece, the intake, right, from our sales team and keep them involved with where we're progressing on the project, so they can reach back out and they know when they can go back to the client to say, hey, we're almost at this certain milestone. Don't you think it's a good time that we talked about that phase 2 approach? Or we're almost done and we're almost going and finishing our support area. Wouldn't it be great if? So you're regenerating these sales leads through who? Our most important pipeline ever, our current clients. And that's the key here to this. Get the projects done, repeat the cycle with our tried and true clients. That's what we need to do. And then you're going down here through expense and approvals, getting down to really the nth degree on how we're actually going to be billing these folks. And this, you can get into really, really some in-depth expense processes. So however in-depth you are today, really leveraging the Microsoft Finance piece here for that nitty-gritty detail. And then getting through the actual invoicing, costing across different geos, however it happens to be. And the end there, like everybody was saying, is the old bringing the financial piece full stream. So if we started off and we sold something to a client, said, hey, this is what benefit you're going to get out of the tool, coming back and saying, did we not only receive that benefit so we can track those benefits, but what are the committed costs to it? And did we achieve that? So that entire circle is what we're trying, what the tool is made for. And this is really where we're going to get started. So I'm going to pause there just to take a quick look at our Q&A, see if there's any questions that I need to. One question is, yes, will these slides be shared? Yes, we can share these slides. Also the recording, if you need to, we can give access to your colleagues. Thanks for pointing that out. Sorry if I didn't mention that at the top of the hour here. What is the difference between project operations and project online? Very good question. I'll be talking to this, but really project operations, as you can see from the title on this, is housed within Dynamics. Okay, and that's really the start. For those folks that knew about PSA in Dynamics or CRM, depending on which avenue they're pulling it in, but the key is Dynamics here. That is a difference. So project operations, built in Dynamics, CDS, you have everything going in that direction from that perspective. Project Online itself is an enterprise project management solution, and it's based on the SharePoint platform. Everything is in the cloud, okay, but you have two different technologies that are sprouting up. Now they can meet in the middle, and where they actually transect now is over in project operations with the new modern project, which is in their flavor of project that's out there. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions on that, and I'll be sure to answer it. Okay, so we talked about expanding our client base, driving key success, and really allowing teams to interact here. And that's the key of what Project for Operations is today. Now I'm going to switch over here and get into a couple different areas for us. And as I do that, we're going to walk through a demonstration of the tool and make sure that we stop and ask some questions and answer some questions for you folks. So I just need to pull up my sheet here, make sure you folks can see it. And we're going to get into here. All right. So first things first. There we are. All right, I have a bunch of things open on my screen here, but the first I want to start off is project operations. Let me just refresh this so we can get the full screen. I'm going to come down here and just lay of the land. Okay, where are you? And what's the look and feel here? Well, the first thing you can do is, again, this is a module out in Dynamics called Project Operations, okay? You have many different modules within Dynamics within here as well. We talked about the sales area, and we also talked about the project area, okay? I'm gonna bounce back and forth between the two today. But the first area that you might wanna start is, let's follow the life cycle, and we'll talk about reporting and all that other stuff in the project area in a second. But within our sales area, and I happen to be in a particular quote at this time, let me back up to an opportunity. If you're following your CRM practice, however this is coming, your sales folks are in their tool. They're in Microsoft CRM, and here I have it by my open. I could go to all and see a bunch more, but I'm just going to click into this one for now. Now I take a look at the opportunity here, and there's a bunch of data that comes in. And this is, again, what the sales folks are going through. And as they go ahead and create this and then tie it, they have phone calls, okay, or they have meetings. All that is included, and it's through CRM, is doing all that tracking. So we have this timeline of what's going on. When do I need to call the the prospect back? Okay, what happened? Where are we within the life cycle? Are we qualifying this now? Has it gone through to contract? Are we working this, meaning execution? Are the project managers taking over and actually using this? I can see all of this information, for, in this case, a billable project that we're doing here. And it's really the high level deal structure we're going to be able to see all the way through the overall life cycle, for this business process. Now, going into an actual opportunity, I'll show you that in a second, but you can have different price lists, which I'll get into. You're going to want to capture, or the salesperson, what is the opportunity value? What percentage do they think it is? Who are the stakeholders on here? What number do I need to call, to reach out to these folks? And you can get into the different opportunity areas and different quotes in this case and say, okay, what quote did we provide? And what are the actual details of that? Now, when I go in here, I'm going to just pull over a quote that has a little bit more detail in here. All right. So when we go into a quote, and actually this is tied to another opportunity, and I can back up and show that too. But as you come through there, this is the detail, right? So this is what was quoted from a sales perspective, and you can have, again, break this out. What are the areas that we want to do this? You can have different quote lines, different project lists. And if I come in here and let's just go into actual one of our project here that we have here. And before I actually do that, let me show you the list, because I get this question all the time. Can you have multiple bill rates? What about different currencies? Yes, to all of that, okay? So when you actually come up, you have your different role prices, you have your different category prices as well. So, is it a consulting lead in this case? Is it for a particular organization? Okay, what's the resourcing unit that we're doing? Could it be offshore versus onshore? And what is the percent and what is the cost, okay, for each one of these resources? So you have the total level to get in there. We talked about more of a role or category pricing in this case. We said this is more than just labor costs, right? So what are all these costs? Are they just individual at cost, whether it's dollar or rupee or anything else? What are we doing as far as the cost here? Or it could be a per unit, right? So you have these different buckets. So fixed cost, okay, versus the actual transaction cost. You're building this up and you're building these different bill rates that are happening. You could select, again, multiple bill rates when you're building your quote. All of this is going to be happening in the sales activity when they build their quote and actually share their quote with the organization. Now, there might be some pre-sales and technical work for the actual proposal and what we're showing and displaying for our product, let's say, or our service. We get that. But this is the detail that's all behind it. And when you go back to your actual quote that's coming in here, you do have some other things, what customers are involved in it, what's the actual profitability analysis if you have this, so this is actually taking metrics now and saying, hey, based on our quote, okay, and what the cost is to the organization, what are we expected to make in revenue here? This goes a little bit beyond, okay, what the normal sales activity would be to this point. So all of these great charts, again, out of the box, based on what we created for our bill rate, what our margin was, and all these different things that we set up as part of our quote, or potentially templated some of this for the sales folks to use. Now, all of this information is drillable, really system views, highly configurable. I will say highly configurable. That's why a lot of organizations reach out to us or other organizations, usually a gold certified partner like PPM Works, to actually help out with this and get this set up for them. So we talked about from the end opportunity and getting into a quote and starting to take a look at the actual quote itself. But now, through all these different quotes, at some point in the life cycle, we would go to reality and we'd start actually working on this project. And first, we have to win the deal. We have to close it. We have to do the contracting and all that. That all can be stored within the application as well. Now, when I say stored within the application, you are coming into Teams environment and looking for my Teams window. So I don't see it. So I'm just going to go over here and open up Teams. So what I'm showing right here is Office 365 or M365 being a Microsoft. And we come in here and we open up our environment. I don't see my Teams here, so I'm going to open up my window picker here. And we're going to come in and grab our, my Teams not showing up. Let's see there we are. All right. And get to my Teams. While that is coming up, I'll show you the collaboration area in just a second. I'm going to cheat here and bring this up for our area. All right. So while that's coming through, let me get into an actual project. So what we did here is I moved over from our sales area into our projects. You notice that we have resourcing and all other good things. But in our project, we have a couple different areas that you can explore. Within that project now that we've gone through in the quantification and we're won that deal, let's say, and we can go through, in here, we would follow that same life cycle. So is it in quote? Is it planned? Is it being delivered? This one that I took right now is a new project. Okay, it hasn't progressed through our life cycle. If you want to progress it through, you can manually do that, okay? Or you can actually have some automation that's set up through the system that says, hey, at this point, when we close, quote unquote, close the deal, okay, kind of pay out some commission potentially, all that good stuff, it could take this and move it through the life cycle too. So a lot of workflow can happen on this as well. Let's take a look at, maybe our team that's in here, the team resources that are coming through. All of these are going to be using, in with our Active Directory. Okay, so we're going to get this information. What resourcing unit? Again, this is really critical based on their bill rates and what they have. This is also an area where at a high level, you can do some resource planning. Okay, we can go in and say, hey, we need a percentage of our resource. And that's on the area of our assignments. So you would come in here, we can actually make cross assignments at a higher level, you can see. So let me just expand this really quickly so we can see. So we have our project manager, and what do we need? We need some effort here. We need 40 hours, it looks for weekly. And this is where we're putting that time in and planning here. So we have our project management for budget and project planning. These are two different tasks, okay, at this level, because right now we're in this initial area. We haven't decomposed the project, right, from a project manager's perspective yet, and really getting into the details. We have resource estimating, okay, for a consulting lead, plan workshop. These are all the tasks that we have chosen within this project itself. Getting into different estimates that you have here and tracking and all the way sales. All of these tools are going to pull in everything that you've had from the sales perspective all the way into our actual project that we're managing here. So this is where these things are coming through. You can see now our estimates based on our resource, their particular role, what they're in. Again, remember what bill rate we assign them to, and we're getting some dollar value here. That would roll all the way up, and you'd see some costing information. You could time scale this out by week, month, etc. But you're starting to get into some level of detail where we're seeing some costs in here for this particular project. Now, each of these projects is going to roll up into a portfolio or program of projects, and each of those programs could roll into a different portfolio. The tool allows you to be user-based. So user-based permissions, I'm mentioning that because up at the top, I haven't mentioned it yet, but I happen to be an admin. So I can maybe see everything across this organization, while other organizations would come in with role-based permissions and only be able to see the particular areas, not only just within the solution of can I get into projects if I'm a resource manager, maybe just in resource area, but also within here, what can I see? All right. If I am a resource manager, I might want to see some dashboards in and around resource management. Now, while I typically don't have too much data here, okay, yet, these out-of-the-box reports, these system views that you can set up here, are going to bring in that information. And this is going a month over month for the resources that we have and just really showing the demand that we have. We could overlay this with actuals and really start to see that high-level, rich resource management tool system that's there. Now, from a scheduling board perspective and also resource utilization, we can bounce over to here and start to see some of that information. I am going to pause, okay, and see if I can answer some of these questions. If you're using a different CRM, can you tie that in? I believe you're probably talking about a competitor tool. So something like Oracle or SAP. So we're waiting for a response here. I'll take that as a yes. Salesforce, okay, bringing something in from Salesforce. So right now, this tool is linking into CRM. They're doing the end-to-end processing there. Typically, when we hear, can you use a different CRM like Salesforce and other things, you have different options. So yes, you still can go this avenue, or are you looking for just the actuals to come in from, in this case, Salesforce, and you want the planned and the management to go in and around your PPM tool, which would be Project Online in this case. So you do have two different avenues that you could use, and we do have a lot of clients that tie into Salesforce, Oracle, and SAP. Good question. Thank you. So let's shift over here into a couple different areas. Now, again, we are in the resource area right now in projects. I'm gonna let this data come in for us. While I do that, on the left-hand side, you can see from my area, we have timelines and expenses and work and approval, all this good stuff. This is truly the area for you to approve and submit time. So there's a timesheet functionality here. There's expenses, so expense reports that can be filled out. Those tick and tie magically where into the project. So those expenses are going directly into the project. And then approval area would be your area if you are an approving manager to come in here. Oh gosh, we got some color here. So right now, as far as the data goes, it doesn't look like we have to a great job on data here, but this is where you would see, and you do see actually, some high risk here with the amount of information here and what we can do. Now, I've selected way too many resources in this case, and it's giving me the ones that we don't really have any data for. But in this area is really where you'd come through and you could filter this out by characteristics. So, what skill base do they have? What roles are we working on? Is it a project manager, or does it happen to be, accountant, whatever it happens to be? And as we start putting in some of these filters and searching, we're going to significantly reduce what we're looking at. I probably should have taken something that we actually have, like a consulting lead. So this area is your tried and true project, or resource manager area, and taking a look. Now, project managers can also use this area to really subset what they're looking for and really give them a glimpse of what their planned on that work. Now, from that perspective, let me shift over here into a board. Now, this scheduling board that we're going to see is a little bit more information from per project and scheduling area. And while the data comes back, this one that we're showing is one of the initial public previews that's out there. It's since been launched, so there's actually some cooler areas that you can come back in and have some that functionality that's there. So I'm gonna go back to get some of our data here. I know there's data in October. But what you're seeing here is across our different resources, you're actually starting to see that resource board and what they're working on. So when I get back in here until October, we can start to see some of our assignments that we have here. This is where you're going to see exactly what they're working on across all the projects. And you can actually drill in here and see what they're on. And there's this concept of booking, so hard versus soft, or demand versus booked. And that is really a nice ability for you to understand what's proposed within the organization versus what's already been committed from a resource perspective. So there are a lot of things that are set up within this tool. And the biggest one that you're going to do is from a project perspective, and I'm seeing active projects, but if you take a look at all the projects that are in here, this would be the area to see that summary of all your projects. Now you do have dashboarding capability to see some of this area and some of those reports as well. But this is the capability. This is really the look and feel. Now it's slightly different than what we have over in maybe more of a project, if you come from Microsoft Project World or some of these other tools. It's going to be more tabular format that we're seeing here, the grid area, and a lot of the areas that you can very quickly manipulate here. Now, before I get off here, I did want to show a couple things up here. This is Microsoft Flow, which is now Power Automate, and you can actually create your different flows for here. So remember I talked about workflow and being able to progress a project from one stage to the next, or have this do something within your organization. You could actually have this not only send an approval, because that's out of the box, but you could send this to a team for review. You could incorporate your leadership committee. Anything that you have within your current process, you can bake into here. A lot of people, since it is a financial area, they are asking, okay, that's great, but we do everything. We pull things into Excel or some other area. You can go ahead and export or import in from Excel. So if you have a list of your projects today in Excel, or something else you're talking about, from Salesforce or something else, you could do this import process and bring everything in and house it into the project operation project area. And then you can actually tick and tie and move forward with Microsoft Project here once you bring in those. A new project, people ask, they say, hey, how does that look? Pretty familiar to and similar to what we just did. Again, this is the out of the box form that you're filling out. A project ID will be populated. If I was going to put this in here, and we're going to use some professional services for dynamic resourcing tool. All right, so that's what we're doing here. You can fill out a description, who's the owning company. We're going to remember the data here. So we're going to go to US. No, whoops, got an extra letter in there. We'll do robotics in the US. You could fill all this stuff out, folks. This is how a new project would be created. What are our estimates? Eventually pulling in actuals, okay, that's coming in here, and then filling all this out. Now from a task perspective, you're going to open up, and this is going to drill into your project. So in this case, if you have a project here, this is a sample, so it's using actually a template here. You have 3 different things. Now this is incorporating, for those folks that know Modern Project, this is pulling Modern Project directly in. So we do have our timeline here, and maybe I want to connect some of these in, I know it could be a waterfall or not, but if you have dependencies, you could start putting those in. I can click on any one of these tasks and add not only notes, but start and finish, completion, and also a little information about these different projects. Now this is nice, and I get to see a definite grid here, or sorry, Gantt chart. But if you're in the mind of more of the Excel version, and you want to see that, oops, looks like it's refreshing here, you can go in and see a grid version of this. And the grid version is just going to give you those Excel-like forms. So you can add in different columns here. You can actually not only add all of these, but you have the ability to add in your fields, whatever it happens to be. So what do we want? Someone might want a text area in this case, and we're going to talk about, vendor or whatever it happens to be. And we can create that. And so when we put it in here, we're going to have, Chuck E. Cheese, whatever it happens to be. We're going to go to the next one. And all of this is yours to really create whatever you'd like in this case. We're going to, let's see, MCS, whatever happens to be. So all of these built-in areas, plus you have 10 areas that you can put in, or 10 fields in this case. Now that's great for someone that likes Excel. Your last would be is, I'm thinking in terms of backlog and sprint. I want to be able to move things back and forth. Same exact task that you had in the earlier one, we drag and drop. Is this in sprint 1, or hey, we're going to actually take this and put a little bit more detail in here. Who's our vendor? Add some notes, etc. Or I can simply take this and move this and say, nope, this is probably not that one, but user story 1 is going to be on to the backlog. All right. You can set up your different buckets here. This is all out of the box functionality, okay, that comes with the Modern Project. Modern Project is the tool set, is the engine for your project in project operations. So in this case, a lot of people like assign to or probably progress, and you can drag and say, hey, we're halfway done with that. We'll just drag and drop it. There it goes, 50%. Move it all the way to complete. I hear a little ding. Not sure if you guys hear that, but that's boom, lights up. And this look and feel are the tasks that you have from your project that we took from the sales process and won that sale into project execution here through project closure. And we'd pop out to the other end and do our invoicing and have that stream work as well. All right. So we are progressing along, and thank you for all the questions that are out there. I'm going to switch back over here and make sure I covered everything here. Oh, people wanted to know about some of the offerings that are out there, these different workshops that we have. Now, this workshop, or the project-centric workshop, you could either go project operations like we showed you today, or maybe, some of the other interest around Project Align sparked you. That would be in our first category, this green area under project. For dashboard in a day, this would be taking this data and moving it in, to Power BI and enhancing and helping you there. For project app in a day, that would be in and around all the environment around Power Apps. So being able to create a Power App, whether it's a registered app or an internal, that's really up to you, and creating and showing you how to do that, or creating one with you. And then last, we hear a lot of folks saying, hey, we want to wrap this tool. We want to see this, in our environment. We want to see it roll out. We want to do teams and have that beautifully integrated. And that would be our teams area where we're pulling things in. So I know I wanted to show you one more thing, which was teams and how all this can incorporate into teams. And I was having it was just loading. So let me see if I can find that on one of my slides over here, or sorry, windows over here, and see if that actually loaded. So I think it'd be nice to see. It's still, oh, here we go. It's coming. All right, so while I do that, I'm going to go back and just check my Q&A panel. Whoops. Perfect. Let's kick this thing in the butt. What's going on with our teams today? Is this panel working? And if this doesn't work, we have demonstrations on Teams as well, and I can put a couple different links that are in here. But what I was trying to show you here, silly Teams come up, but I wanted to show you how all of this could be embedded. Here we go. Can be embedded directly into Teams. So on the left-hand side, you do have all your teams. You have your planner or your tasks that you're doing. But where does all this project operations fall in, and how can we see that? Well, you could have a sales channel, from your organization. In this case, you could have an intake channel that could come through. This is where they could create the everything from a project. What you're trying to do is keep everybody in the same system. Now, if your sales group and they're relying heavily on, Salesforce or some other CRM, they're doing something over here, you could pull that directly into Teams so they can see all that information and that data. On a project perspective, we left off where we're sort of managing and looking at the task and dragging and dropping things and putting statuses around. You could actually get a status report that you see on the screen here that would come out, and it could be sent weekly, quarterly, monthly, whatever happens to be. So people within the project itself and stakeholders that are out there could actually figure out what's going on with our project. In all of these areas, what we do is we just create different tabs. You would generate, how this looks, from a governance perspective. Once we close the deal, do we automatically create a project? Sure. You can create a project, you can create the team, you can create the collaboration area, as well as a link to that quote and to that actual area within project operations. I pause there because I'm used to saying over in CRM, but it's all going to be embedded here within project operations. So at what life cycle are you, and where do you want to see this within Teams? And then lastly, I'm talking about some of our reporting area. Let's just see if one of these has it. Where am I in? Low complexity. Yeah, this will pull it up. So you can then get reports based on your project information. You could also get all your sales and your revenue, as well as your invoicing, all this, whether you do it over here in Power BI or you do it out of the box with project operations is really up to you. This gives you a little bit more look and feel, little color to it. Project operations also does that. It seems to be a little bit more tabular versus really engaging that you see here. And here, you can drill into a project, hover over it, and actually get to see, okay, these are my projects in particular. What are the milestones over the month, number that are going to be completed or that haven't been started? How is that looking in my organization from a portfolio area? You can also get into your portfolio timelines and be able to see, okay, how is my timeline looking across this entire area itself? Someone mentioned milestone report. Let me see it. Sure, I can pull one of those up. From a milestone report, there are a bunch here. Here's just one example. So you could take a look, at a milestone report. In this case, they have similar milestones for this portfolio, and that's what we want to see. And it's sort of rolling those up. So you'd have the project at the level of detail, and if you opened up any one of these, you could actually see where your different analysis complete or whatever else you are tracking at this. Does that help? Perfect. All right. So we have navigated through and really taken a look at what project operations is from the end-to-end point of getting your information into the system, being able to bring it from the sales perspective all the way through to those folks that are managing the project accounting and getting that out. I would like to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This, as well as others, will be up there as far as recordings, so you can go out there. There's a wealth of information. We are going to be doing another project operations, and you should be able to see that with some of the new features that are out there with project operations. Again, this was just released from a public preview into public distribution. We are almost, November 19th, so that happened just a couple weeks ago here. So if this is November 2000, 20 and you're listening to this, there are some newer things that are out there. So make sure you check out some of our other webcasts that are there. So you can go to our YouTube and go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to pause here to see if there are any other questions, but I would like to invite you as well. If you do have any questions that come to mind, if you're watching this recording and you have some questions that weren't answered live, go ahead and submit those to info@ppmworks.com, and we'll be sure to answer those questions for you. Now, on behalf of everybody that did join us, thank you for your time, not only for those that are joining live, but also those folks that are listening to this recording. If you want to see any of the actual sample reports or anything else, we will be happy to do a personalized demonstration for you or your organization. Again, just reach out to us at info@ppmworks.com. And on behalf of Microsoft, the Microsoft team, and everybody supporting both project operations as well as Microsoft 365, we want to thank you for your time joining us today in the view of Project Operations Dynamics 365. Have a great day. Be safe out there. Thank you.